or not. I'll have to go check on my system for the Facebook. I don't know what is there these days. Yes, we are. Okay.
Yes,
all right, so let's get started here after a brief prayer to the spiritual master. And let me close all these hundreds of windows that are open here. Windows, it's being.
Hare Krishna.
Did I leave it accidentally? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Danvat Pranams. Jai
I am
Shri
in the car. I am in the car.
Yes, you are in your daughter's car. I can see that. And using her phone.
We're going from New Jersey to Philadelphia.
Fantastic. Okay, good. So, and we have Sumi Mataji back with us. She was away on a work stint. And so we are happy to have you back, Sumi.
Hi, Shraddha. Hare Krishna, Shraddha Mataji. Thank you. I'll go on the video like shortly. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Okay, let's get started. Om Jnanatimarandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Welcome again to our class on the Bhagavad-gita chapter 4. So we have come a long way. At least we are happy to say that in the COVID times, ever since COVID started, and we started these classes back in March of 2020, and we started with the first verse of the Bhagavad-gita. And we used to have these classes in the morning. We used to have classes every day. So we made some. And then now we are having a slower progress, and I'm the culprit over there. But nevertheless, we still inched our way. And as Vashishika says, inch by inch, it's a cinch. So, you know, or as they say in Hindi, ungli pakad ke pahuncha pakadna, right? So slowly, 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 touching Krishna, we will finally hold his hand. And so in chapter number 3, which is Karma Yoga, and now this is Jnana Yoga. This chapter is called Jnana Yoga. And I'm just going to bring up my screen here and share something with you. So, you know how when we read the Bhagavad-gita, at the end of it, we go and, you know, recite some lines, and those are known as colophons. And colophons can be anything. There could be a couple of lines that describe the chapter. And sometimes in the colophon, they also put the name of the author, right? So sometimes you see in Narottam Das is prayers, you see, Sutapa, is there a question? You're not able to hear, see something?
No. Mataji, before we start, maybe I'll forget. So I just wanted to ask like 2 questions, very small thing. Twice born Brahmana. So that means the Brahmana who take birth as a Brahmin, and then after the initiation, the Brahman, that is twice born Brahman?
So there are 2 births for a Brahmin. One is a seminal birth, right? So from the womb of the mother, they are born, and all of us are firstborns, right? We all are born that way, right? But the Brahmana boy, as you said, at the age of 12 or 13, he gets another life when he gets that samskara, the Yajñopaveet samskara, where he gets the sacred thread. So that's why they are known as twice born. So Brahmanas are twice born. Kshatriyas are also twice born because they also undergo the thread ceremony. Like that, yeah.
And Mataji, another question, like I was reading the other day, there was I was reading a line, I forgot exactly the line, but the word 3 words. So 3 worlds means 3 world. So 3 worlds means like Bhur, Bhuva, and Shargalok, Patalok, or Bhulok, or
Yeah. So you just understand that our 14 planetary systems are divided into 3 layers. So those are known as 3 worlds or 3 bhuvan. So Bhur, Bhuva, Swa. So that Swar loks are, above us, we are in the middle, and then the lower planetary systems. So Patal is actually the lowest of the lower planetary systems. So the lower planets are also known as Netherlands. So sometimes you hear in other literature also the mention of Netherlands. So Netherlands basically are the lower planetary systems. They are 7, Patal, Sutal, Atal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, like that, right? And then we have the middle planetary system and the upper planetary system, Maharlok, Janlok, Tapalok, Satyalok, Brahmalok, like that. So yeah, 3 words are meant as that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. That's all. Okay,
no problems. So I was saying that, so sometimes I was talking about colophones, and I was saying so colophones could be used to describe, say, something about the whatever was written, the narration or the text or the poetry, and sometimes it's also used by the writer to put their own names. And so usually we find in Narottam Das's prayers, in the end, it'll be Kahe Narottam Dasa. So from that, from the end, so Narottam Das is the writer for this, or, Surdas tab bihasi jashoda le ur kant lagayo. So like in Surdas's prayers also, in the last line, you will say Surdas kahi, so Surdas say, so then, like, okay, the whole thing is being said. So colophones that's the word for colophone. And then, so we have colophones for Bhagavad-gita also, right? Om Tatsatiti Srimad Bhagavad-gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yog Shastre Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade. So that part, and so for every chapter of Bhagavad-gita, we have a colophon. And so these lines will be the same. Up to these words will be the same for all the chapters, and then the essence of that chapter. So I just wanted to share the colophon for this chapter, since we're beginning a new chapter. So it's always a nice thing to get familiar with that. And so let me share colophons from Bhagavad Gita. So on the 10th, on the 4th, Om Tatsat Iti Srimad Bhagavad-gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade Gyan Yogo Nama Chaturtho Adhyayah. So here he's saying that Om, we always take the name of the Lord. Tatsat means this is what it is. It is Srimad Bhagavad Gita, right? So Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is a Upanishad. This is also known as a Upanishad. Right? And then what does this Upanishad do? It gives you Brahma Vidya. It gives you transcendental knowledge, right? Yoga Shastra, it's a Shastra, the scripture that teaches you yoga or how to connect with the Lord. Yoga Shastra, Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade. So this is a dialogue going on. Samvad is a dialogue. So it's a Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade. So the dialogue that's going on between Shri Krishna and Arjun has been divided into chapters. So when Krishna was speaking to Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, right? So he was not saying chapter 1, chapter 2. Actually, some of the verses in Bhagavad Gita are not spoken by Krishna. They are written by Vyasadeva, right? He says it starts actually with Dhritarashtra Vacha, Dharmashastra. It doesn't start with Krishna Vacha. Bhagavad Gita starts with that Dhritarashtra Vacha, Dharmashastra, Kurukshetra, right? And then the first chapter, then Vyasadeva is narrating what all is happening, and then Krishna starts to speak actually in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? He says only one word, and not directly, not as Bhagwan Vacha, but he says in the first chapter that he says, see the armies that are assembled there. So that's the only thing that he says, but those words were so powerful. They jolted Arjuna so badly, right? And it is so very interesting that Krishna is to those Vach Partha Paschyetan Samyetan Kurunati. So it's such an interesting thing that that Vach Partha, right? So Krishna said, Parth Paschyetan Kuruniti Samvetan Kuruchi. Oh, look at all these Kurus who are assembled here. That's a very, very interesting thing. And which is that when the Mahabharata war was being run and was being, about to be fought, there was a lot of, Something is in the chat. Okay, yeah. So there was a lot of excitement among the people to go fight the war. It's almost like, a cricket match is going to start tomorrow, and the Indians are ready, Australians are ready, like that. So that spirit. So because the way the wars were fought in those days, it was not the way they are fought here. There were nice rules and regulations. And for Kshatriya, fighting a war, fighting is a sport. There was sportsmanship in a war in those days, in as much as, if your weapon fell down, then, you would stop the war and ask your opponent to pick up the weapon and then fight. Yeah, it's not like, oh, his weapon is falling down, let me shoot, like that. And we read many verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam as to why and how, and as to how Ashwatthama was, such a bad character because he killed people when they were sleeping, right? So anyway, that's the nature of Kshatriya, right? It comes from the mode of passion, Rajoguna. And so they were so excited that it is said that, like the war is supposed to start tomorrow, and all the armies had assembled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. They didn't even sleep that night. They were just, waiting and so excited for the war to go, for the war to start the next day, right? And so Arjuna, Pandavas, everybody's there. And interesting thing is that there are certain things, like night is night, and day is day. When I was when the class first started, Sadhana Mataji was the first person to come in. So I looked at her, and then behind her, I could see the glass, and behind the glass, I could see the bright sky. But I was like, oh, it is still light, because in my room, it's still dark because I had pulled the curtain. And so you need light to see. You need light to see things. It's very, very important. So in the dark, you can get some perception, but the light really brings clarity to your vision. And the real light that is shared is the transcendental light. It's very important for you to get that transcendental vision of the world, right? If you remove the spirit aspect from the world and you look at the world around you, it will be like, why? But this is so unfair. This is so unfair. I was talking to somebody who needed some help in, they had purchased an apartment. Apartment means apartment complex. and when they purchased the apartment complex, one family was still occupying. And he wanted that person to be removed. And, it's a very difficult thing. It's better not to buy an apartment, no matter how cheap it is, if there's somebody staying in it. And then, that person would not move. And this person had to go and file eviction notice. And the tenant went to the court and said, I'm a low-income person and I can't afford attorney fees, so get me an attorney. And this person would not want to spend any money. He was asking for lawyers here and there, and you were talking to some friend, like that. And so they were talking about the situation, and they said, no matter what, it's very likely that the tenant is going to win the lawsuit, and then the landlord will have to end up paying attorney fees or any other fees that were involved. And they were just talking, they were saying that this is so unfair. And I was thinking in my head, it is not fair or unfair, you just increase the time continuum, and you'll see what is fair and not fair. So you need to have that kind of a vision, the transcendental vision, that it's the same soul who in his previous birth has done something, and now it's the other one is coming back and taking back your dues or making you punished. So that transcendental vision is very, very important. And so all these people, including Arjuna, who were all excited about the fight and this and that, and so it's all in the night. And the next day when the sun is up, and Krishna says, Paschetan Kuruniti, look at them, the Kurus. And that's when he sees, right? So seeing, but still he's seeing, well, at least he's he is seeing. So at least, from some darkness, he came to light, right? From he saw the reality that I have to really fight my own family, right? So at least some vision was improved from, I want to fight to like, oh my goodness, now I have to fight them, right? But then the real vision Krishna is going to give him, right? And he actually started giving him the second chapter itself, right? So now in the Brahma Vidya, so what I was saying was that here he's saying that Krishna Arjun Samvade. So when Arjuna chickens out and he says that I don't want to fight, it's not actually chickening out. He's confused. Chickening is not the right word to use. He's confused out of compassion for all these people. He's saying that, Krishna, I cannot fight. And, then he gives many reasons why he doesn't want to fight. And so Krishna has to now quickly tell him everything. And by the way, the bugles had already sounded. People had already sounded their conch shells, and people had started beating the drums. The war has, started, so to speak, or the bell had rung for the class to start. And now all this disaster is happening, and we have a problem now, a severity one issue like the one I was handling since last night. So Krishna has this severity one issue on his hands, and he says that, he starts telling, right? Like, what this strategic point? What is this nonsense that's happening to you? And so Krishna has not divided things into chapters. He's not telling Arjuna that, look here, chapter 1, there's chapter 2, there's chapter 3, there's chapter 4, this, right? But we have to see, as we go about reading the chapters, we have to understand, and see the grouping and the subheadings and the chunks of pieces of information, the modules that Krishna is presenting to Arjuna. And of course, some of them are coming because of, some of the grouping is happening because Arjuna is asking some of these questions there, right? And so for us, before we go into chapter number 4, we have to go and have a little look at what is there in chapter 3 as well. And so here we know from our, from our succession, the subject section from where we're reading, and this is what Vyasadeva has, divided the Bhagavad-gita. So he's saying, Gyan Yogo Nama Chaturto Adhyaya. So this is Jnana, right? And we all know that when we talk about Jnana, we are always talking about transcendental knowledge. Any other knowledge that you get is fine. It's Shama Eva Hi Kevalam, it's useless knowledge, right? Anything that you do, if it's not connected to Krishna, is not knowledge, period. So we are strict about that, right? So let's go and have a look at chapter number 3 of Bhagavad-gita first. And and actually, even before that, we would have a look, but I'll definitely mention that. And that is that when Arjuna starts feeling bad and looking at all these, Dishreyam Swajanam Krishnam Yuyutsum Sampupastitam Sidanti Mama Gatrani. So he's saying, I'm seeing all my people, right? And my limbs are quivering, and my throat is dying, and my lips are high fever, and all that. He says all that. He's reacting in such a way. And then in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, then Krishna says that never was there a time when these were not there. Never will there be a time when any of them will cease to exist. So they are going to be there. So basically, he brought in the spiritual aspect, saying that there is a soul, right? And the soul will never die. So don't be too much worried about somebody dying. And then Krishna explains that to the half of 2nd chapter. He says that, the Sankhya Yoga, this is soul, this is not destructible, all those things. He says that. And then as he goes along, he says, okay, now I'm also going to tell you, looking at it from the Buddhi Yoga, which is nothing but the Bhakti Yoga. So he tells him about how a person should be, bring in God and those kind of things. He's telling him all that. And then using your intelligence. And then so Arjun is now confused whether he should fight the war or not, because he's saying, like, if bhakti is involved, then everything is fine. I'm already on the path of bhakti. I've already set aside my Gandiva, because you've never seen the bhaktas going around with a Gandiva in their hand. Or for that matter, they are not, they don't have shastras in their hands. They have shastra in their hands, right? They have scriptures in their hands. They don't have weapons in their hands, the devotees. So now he's saying, I've already left my weapon. I've already kept the Gandiva behind. So I'm already on that path. I'm already seeing that I don't have to fight the war. So why do you then, want me to fight? So he gets confused. In the beginning of chapter number 3, we see Arjuna Vacha, Jayasi Cheta Karmanaste, Mata Buddhe Janardana, Tatkim Karmani Ghore Mam, Niyojayasi Keshava. So he's using the word Karmani and Ghore. Right? Karmani and Ghore. So what does Karmani mean? Karmani, Ghore. Karmani is action. And Ghore is ghastly, right? So you know that war is a ghastly thing, right? It is ghastly. So you can imagine in the Mahabharata war, I was just thinking about the Mahabharata war, and what a stench it must have been to have dead bodies and blood and everything under the sun, and people are sweating, and there is elephants, and there are horse, so there is elephant dung, there is cow dung all over the place, dead bodies all over the place, right? And then of course they have to be cremated. So I don't know how the cremation ground looked like, because there were millions of people there fighting. I don't know how all that happened. So it was a very ghastly scene. And so Arjuna is saying, like, here are the nice and the saintly, peaceful, calm and quiet. Why are you asking me to do all that thing, right? Why are you asking me to indulge in that? So then Krishna explains to him that, what is action, what is inaction. And ultimately, we all know he's saying that, you just do everything for Krishna. And when you're doing things for Krishna, no matter how ghastly it appears to be, it is not ghastly. When you start looking at it from a different perspective and from a different angle, like that, right? So then, Arjuna understands that. Krishna also tells him that, how in the beginning I set for generations, I give them the Vedas, and, follow the sacrifices, sacrificial method, don't keep things to yourself, offer things first to the Lord. So all those nice things he's saying, right? So we have to do the good things is what he's saying, right? So then also he's saying, those who follow this, what happens to them? Those who don't follow it, what happens to them? Those who are already advanced and learned, what how they should behave and all that stuff, right? And then, so he's saying, he's also very important thing. He's just saying that, even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. For everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Right? So what he's just telling is that, if you are a Kshatriya, today you are saying, I will go and, I will live on alms and I beg and live like that. It's not going to happen. Right? So, but he's insisting that it's better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily. Don't try to do other prescribed duties. Don't try to become a Brahmana. You are a Kshatriya, right now. So then Arjuna asked that very famous question. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Right? As if I'm forced to do that. A very, very important question. And then Krishna spent the rest of the chapter, all up to verse number 43, just answering this one question. So he takes like almost seven verses to answer that question. And the key thing over here was that Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam iti Varinam. So he said that Kama Esha Krodha Esha. So he said it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Know that thing. Vidyenam. No. You understand this. So he's saying, and why does it happen? Because when we come into the contact of the material mode of passion, right? So this is what he says that this is what happens. Then, okay, if this is what is happening, what am I supposed to do? And in the last, towards the end of the chapter, Krishna says that knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses. So here comes the spiritual aspect of it, right? You understand that, Arjuna, you are a soul. Understand yourself to be transcendental to the material senses, the mind and the intelligence. O mighty armed Arjuna, one should study the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and by spiritual strength conquer the insatiable energy known as lust, right? So he said deliberate, right? Wait, like I said last time, you should weigh. This is the right thing, this is not the right thing. If I do this, what good is going to come out of it? What bad is going to come out of it? Weigh, right? Is it according to the Shastras? Not according to the Shastras. How much is it aligned to what the Guru say? Like that, So that kind of a deliberation and applying your intelligence has got to happen. And he says by deliberate spiritual intelligence. So how is spiritual intelligence? Spiritual intelligence has to be backed up by some spiritual knowledge. Right? So we ended chapter number 3 with this, that, you have to use spiritual knowledge. So naturally, as a consequence, when we go to chapter number 4, it is called transcendental knowledge. Right? So Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad-gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yog Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Jnana Yogo Nama, right? So this Jnana is transcendental knowledge. So this is chapter number 4, which is Jnana Yoga. So now let's look at this and see. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavam Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manur Ishvakave Bravi. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manur Ishvakave Bravi. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavam Aham Avyayam Vivashman Manave Praha Manur Ishvakave Bravi. So now looking at the synonyms, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said. Does anybody remember how does the chapter 3 starts? Who starts to speak in chapter 3? Who's the first one to speak in chapter 3?
Arjuna.
Arjuna, very good. Right? Arjuna says, Kim karmani ghore mam, why are you engaging me in these ghastly acts? So Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Imam, this, Vivasvate, unto Sun God, Yogam, the science of one's relationship to the Supreme. Proktavan, instructed. Aham, I. Avyayam, imperishable. Vivasman, the Sun God's name. Manave, unto the Father of mankind, of the name Vevasvat. Praha, told. Manuhu, the father of mankind. Ikshvakave, unto King Ishvaku. Abravit, said. Okay, so let's look at the words one more time. There are some names that are being used over here. So there is Vivasvate, unto the Sun God, right? Oops, Sun God, and the name of the Sun God is Vivashman. So in Sanskrit, and the names also will get changed. Like if in English, Sadhana will remain Sadhana. So Kumal Radhe will remain. So Kumal Radhe, no matter if I have to say Sukumal Radhe is going, Sukumal Radhe is eating, he gave it to Sukumal Radhe. So whether you're active, whether you're passive, your name remains the same. But in Sanskrit language, it changes, right? So it will be Vivashman Uvacha, right? So, but then if something is given to Vivashman, we will say Vivashvate. We won't say, Vivashman. So it changes. The names also change in Sanskrit language. So Vivashvate is, unto the Sun God by the name Vivashman. Right? And we see that over here later in the same verse, Vivashman. Manave, again. So unto the Father of mankind of the name Vevasvat. So now Manave means unto Manu, or unto the Father of mankind. The name is Manu. And again, when Manu is the receiver of an action, then he becomes Manave, unto the Father of mankind. Praha is told, right? So then there's a difference between, the telling. Instructed, the word instructed is your rules for Prokta, and Praha is told, So both of them are the same, but, there's a slight differences there. Manuhu is the father of mankind. And we see that this word Manu, which of course comes from our scriptures from the Sanskrit, is Manu. And we also have in English the word human, right? So the word human also has got Manu in it, right? Manu. So this is how everything derives from Sanskrit as the original language. Manu, the father of mankind. Ishvakave, again, the change in the name. Ishvaku is the name of the king. And then if you unto King Ishvake, that becomes Ishvakave. So Ishvaku, Abravit is said. So Bravit is present tense. When it is past tense, you get an A before it. So Abravit is said, which goes into the past, right? And so Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Imam is this, Vishvasvate, unto the Sun God, Yogam, the science of one's relationship to the Spirit Supreme Lord. How do you connect with the Supreme Lord? Proktavan, instructed, Aham is I, Avyayam is imperishable. And then again, more names, Vivashman, Manu or Manave, unto Manu, Praha, told, and again, Abravit is said. So quite a few, names, and then basically it's all about, people talking. So let's see what Prabhupada has to give us in the translation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashwan. And Vivashwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ishkvaku. So who did Lord Krishna tell Bhagavad-gita for the first time?
The sun god Vivashwan.
Vivashwan, very good. The sun god Vivashwan. And Vivashwan told it to whom?
Manu.
Manu. Okay. And Manu in turn gave it to?
Ishkvaku.
Okay, very good, right? So these three things we see. Now, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Herein we find the history of Bhagavad Gita traced from a remote time when it was delivered to the royal order of all planets, beginning from the sun planet. The kings of all planets are specially meant for the protection of the inhabitants, and therefore the royal order should understand the science of Bhagavad Gita in order to be able to rule the citizens and protect them from material bondage to lust. Human life is meant for cultivation of spiritual knowledge in eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the executive heads of all states and all planets are obliged to impart this lesson to the citizens by education, culture, and devotion. In other words, the executive heads of all states are intended to spread the science of Krishna consciousness so that the people may take advantage of this great science and pursue a successful path utilizing the opportunity of the human form of life. In this millennium, the sun god is known as Vivaswan, the king of sun, which is the origin of all planets within the solar systems. In the Brahma Samhita 5.52, it is stated, Yachakshure cha savita sakala grahanam raja samasta suramurti rasesha tejaha yas agyaya brahmati samvrata kala chakro govindamati purusham tamaham bhajami. Let me worship, Lord Brahma said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda Krishna, who is the original person and under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, is assuming immense power and heat. The sun represents the eye of the Lord and traverses its orbit in obedience to his order. The sun is the king of the planets, and the sun god, at the present of the name Vivashwan, rules the sun planet, which is controlling all the other planets by applying heat and light. He is rotating under the order of Krishna. Yas agyaya brahmati sambrata kala chakro, right? Kala chakro, he's going in circles, right? And how is he doing that? By the order of Krishna. And Lord Krishna originally made Vivashwan his first disciple to understand the science of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is not therefore a speculative treatise for the insignificant, mundane scholar, but is a standard book of knowledge coming down from time immemorial. In the Mahabharata Shanti Parv 848, 51 and 52, we trace out the history of the Gita as follows. Treta Yugadayo Chatato Vivashwan Manave Dadao Manuscha Loka Bhrit Artham Sutta Yeksh Ishvakave Dadao Ishvakuna Cha Katito Vyapya Lokan Avastitaha. In the beginning of the millennium known as Treta Yuga, this science of the relationship with the Supreme was delivered by Vivashwan to Manu. Manu, being the father of mankind, gave it to his son Maharaj Ishvaku, the king of this earth planet and therefore of the Raghu dynasty in which Lord Ramchandra appeared. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita existed in human society from the time of Maharaj Ishvaku. At the present moment, we have passed through 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga, which lasts 432,000 years. Before this, there was Dwapar Yuga, 800,000 years approximately. And before that, there was Treta Yuga, 1,200,000 years. Thus, some 2,005,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad Gita to his disciple and son Maharaj Ishvaku, the king of this planet Earth. The age of the current Manu is calculated to last some 305,300,000 years, of which 120,400,000 have passed. So half, less than half. Accepting that before the birth of Manu, the Gita was spoken by the Lord to his disciple, the sun god Vivashman, a rough estimate is that Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago, at least. And in human society, it has been extant for about 2 million years. Imagine how old this scripture is. It was re-spoken by Lord again to Arjuna about 5,000 years ago. This is the rough estimate of the history of Gita, according to the Gita itself and according to the version of the speaker, Lord Shri Krishna. It was spoken to the sun god Vivashna because he's also a Kshatriya and is the father of all the Kshatriyas who are descendants of the sun god or the Surya Vamsha Kshatriyas. Because Bhagavad-gita is as good as the Vedas, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this knowledge is aparusheya, superhuman. Since the Vedic instructions are accepted as they are without human interpretation, the Gita must therefore be accepted without mundane interpretation. Mundane wranglers may speculate on the Gita in their own ways, but that is not Bhagavad-gita as it is. Because Bhagavad-gita has to be accepted as it is from the disciplic succession, it is described hearing that the Lord spoke to the sun god spoke to his son Manu, and Manu spoke to his son Ishkavaku. So that's it here. So beginning chapter number 4, Krishna is now telling to Arjuna about who are all the other people to whom the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, right? And so he starts with the sun god. And what was the name of the sun god?
Vivashan.
Vivashvan, right? He spoke first to the sun god Vivashvan, right? So he's sun god, Surya-devta. He's Surya-devta. So these are posts, right? And then he was saying that this Devta he's the king of the sun planet, right? So you know that in our scripture, sun is not a star. According to our scripture, sun is a planet and people can inhabit these planets also. So sometimes those who are mundane wranglers, they might just say that, how can you live on the sun, right? Because if I try to move into fire, I'm immediately burned down to ashes. So how can I even live, right? So that is where our Sankhya Yoga comes into picture, where we explain about the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether that make up the body, right? So, and they are in certain proportions, mixed together in certain proportions. For example, what is the most thing in our body? What is the maximum percentage?
Water.
Water, right? How much percentage is that? 70%, right? So this body is 70%. So that rest of the 30%, a little bit will be air. Okay, that might be very minimal, right? And then earth, water, fire. There is fire. Where is the fire?
Agni.
Stomach.
Yeah, there are different kinds of fires in the body. Krodhagni, right? So the Jataragni is the fire in the stomach, but there's fire also, right? But not too much because you don't see flames coming out, right? So there is fire, and there's water, there's ether, of course, there's space, and then there is the gross earth. The earth is there, earth element is there, because of which you can see the shape.
Skin.
Right? Yeah, not the skin. Everything else is earth, like the bone, the blood, right? Everything is the earth, made of earth element. And because of the earth element is what your body essentially will get the weight from that, either from the water or from the earth. Those are the bulky items in the body. Rest is, air.
So that means those who have a lot of weight, that means their earth element is more in the body.
Absolutely, yes. And there is weight due to water also, right? Sometimes they say that if you want to lose water, lose weight, stop drinking water. Not a good thing, not recommended, but people do that, right? So yeah, have some, eat some diuretic, which will remove all the water from your body. Immediately you'll see a few pounds loss of body weight, right? So they do that, but essentially it is there. And then so the question that Sutapa Matiji was asking earlier about the three, what are the 3 worlds, right? So as you progress through the 3 worlds, from the bottom world to the top, the earth element decreases. So the bodies on Patal Lok, etc., are much, much heavier than the bodies that we have in the middle planets, and the bodies of the upper are even lighter, right? So that's why you sometimes see that the Devtas are shown, they are floating, right? Like that, right? Because, and they are effulgent. Why do you think the Devtas are effulgent? What do you think brings the effulgence from them? They are shiny. Why do they shine? What element is there more in them?
Cold.
Sun, light.
Agni?
Cold.
5. Give me from the
Agni?
5.
Why?
From the
Why?
Fire.
5. Fire, right? Fire gives you heat and light, right? So the light, so that because they have more fire in their body, so that is where they are. And they have less earth, so they are lighter. They are lighter in weight and they are more effulgent than we are, right? Like that.
And Hare Krishna Mataji, is that the reason that when they curse somebody, immediately the curse comes upon the people because they have a lot of fire in them, and means Krodha also?
No, not no. Not
That's a
necessarily.
different type of fire. Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily. See why people curse and why curses come true, right? There's a reasoning behind it. You have to be of a certain level of consciousness to be able to have the curse, your curses materialize, right?
Yeah,
So what happens is that these people, exalted beings, they don't speak lies at all. They always speak the truth.
Yeah.
So whenever they curse and say this is going to happen to you, that happens because they don't speak anything untruth. So that's the reasoning behind the curses. So that won't necessarily have to do with how much fire you have. Like it's not necessarily that fire is involved in the curse.
Mataji,
Actually, they use water, to curse. Touch the water and then they curse. Go ahead with that.
we go more that higher, that air, that's why they float in the moon or something like that.
Scientific, that's a scientific explanation that the gravitational pull is less in the moon than it is on the earth. So this body will float, right? So that's a different kind of a floating. Well, gravity is, when you read the Srimad Bhagavatam chapter number 5, you'll be shocked to understand what is gravity, what is gravitational pull. And everything that we learned in geography and in the science of 20 out of 20 marks you got in your class by your teacher, science teacher, and you read the Bhagavatam, it's like, oh, now what do I teach my kids? If you teach them this, they'll fail in the class. So you have to tell them vidya and avidya, vidyam cha avidyam cha. Right, side by side, you have to teach them that, hey, kid, they are teaching you this in school, but actually this is what the Shastras say. So just be diplomatic in your school. If you have to write that answer, write it to get through it. But, you understand the truth from it. There's knowledge, right? True knowledge that is coming. So, Tapa, you raise your hand again? Or is it
yes, Mataji, I just wanted to ask you, means if I don't have the knowledge about something and then instead of telling I don't know, I'm telling something else. So that will be considered as a lie.
Was it a deliberate, you said, or was it intention? It's always an intention behind it. Why did you tell a different thing?
Because we do
I don't know,
then that
but
will be.
I am not accepting that I don't know.
Then that is a lie.
Yes.
Yes, very much it's a lie. And it's the fourth defect that we have, the cheating propensity. Yeah. See, first we have imperfect senses, right? Then we have a tendency to be delusion. We have a tendency to make mistakes. And then the fourth thing is that we have a tendency to cheat. And that is why in the purport Prabhupada said, Apurushe. He was saying that we should get this knowledge, Apurushe. And it's a very important thing. It's a very important thing to note is that what are the words with which chapter 4 starts?
Bhagwan Vacha.
Bhagwan Uvacha, right? It's a very important thing. It's a very important thing to keep in mind that Sri Bhagwan Uvacha is a big deal. It's a very big deal. Bhagavad-gita starts with
Bhagavan Vacha.
No, Mataji. Sanjay
Vacha.
No, Mataji, Dhritarashtra.
Yes, Dhritarashtra Vacha, right? So there's a difference between Dhritarashtra Vacha and Sri Bhagwan Vacha, right? And we have to understand. So whenever you're trying to get something, some information, we have to make sure, Vindhyavali, have some water, Mataji, go get some water. So Sri Bhagwan Vacha is that, God is saying, and that is what is the bona fide truth, because he's Apurusha. Purusha is us. and an embodied being who are under the modes of material nature, who are encased in this material body, and we have got these 4 defects. First is that we have imperfect senses, right? Our senses are one of the reasons, I mean, senses are there for multiple reasons. One of the reasons you have senses is that for your own protection, right? For your own protection. And for example, if you don't have eyes, how will that harm you?
Will not be able to see, Mataji.
How will that harm you?
We won't be able to cover our eyes, means close our eyes.
How will it harm you?
We cannot protect ourselves.
How will it harm you?
You cannot see the expression on other people's faces when they are saying something.
Is that the only harm that will come if you don't have eyes?
No, you can't see.
No,
Like if you drive and you
I
can't
leave
see
it.
whether there's you can't
We
drive.
cannot protect ourselves. Is that right, Mataji?
You can't see.
Yes,
There's
but
any-
tell me what will be, give me some example of harms that can come. So I don't
I mean, you might walk into a wall. You might walk into a
Yeah. These are the dangers, right? If you don't have eyes, you don't know what you're walking into. You can walk off a cliff. You can fall into a well. You can walk into fire. You will not know, right? At least if you won't walk into the fire. If your skin is still sensitive and you know the heat is coming, you might stop, right? So these senses are also meant for our protection, right? Like that. So, so our senses are imperfect and they're meant for us to protect, right? So I always give this example that suppose you have a table made of steel, right? And Sadhana Mataji told me that she came back from doing chopping at the temple. I think Sukuman Madhi must have been driving that chopping session. But anyway, so tomorrow is Nityanand Chaturdashi, so preparation going on in the temple. And so there's a steel table, right? Now, suppose you take a hot shower and then you come and touch the steel table, or you wash your hands with hot water, touch the steel table, it is cold, right? And if you're doing something with the ice and you come and touch the steel table, it is hot. Now you tell me, what is the truth? Is it hot or is it cold? Same table. That is our senses. So what the senses are actually telling you is that, compared to where you are, compared to what your temperature is, hey, that's a colder thing. Or compared to where you are, that's a hotter thing. So you might decide to not touch the table because it is hotter than what I am. Like that. Senses are also meant to go and give this. But these are imperfect senses. They're never going to tell you the truth. They are not giving you the right knowledge of what is it? Is it hot or is it cold? What exactly? It's not an absolute thing. It's relative to your body, right? So, and then we have a tendency to be illusion, right? And I don't have to tell you about illusion, rope and snake and rope is a standard example, optical illusions of seeing water on the road when you're driving and things like that. Then there's a tendency to make mistakes, right? We want to write something, we want to put salt and you pick up something else and you put sugar in it. And I remember making halwa in the temple once and putting salt in that and serving it to all the devotees. I did that. After that, I don't enter the kitchen. So those kind of mistakes, a tendency to error. And the worst thing is that, then there is a tendency to lie on top of that. Like, right? Do you think there is salt in it? No, I don't think so. Let me taste. Yeah, to me, it appears sweet. I don't know why it's appearing sour to you. We have this, to save our face, we do that. Varshana Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Surdas was blind. I mean, he didn't have eyes to see. But when he used to go to the temple, he could see the dress of the Lord in his from his pure heart. He could see. He used to tell also, today the Lord is looking beautiful in his green dress. Today he is looking beautiful with his yellow dress. Yeah. So, Mataji, how, this maturity, when does it come?
A very interesting thing. These are called as mystic powers that you get, right? It's a mysticism. You have conquered some aspects of the material nature and you're able to see beyond curtains that fall on your eyes. You're still able to see that, right? And Prabhupada says something very interesting. The Ashtasiddhi Nidhi Ke Data, right? We sing that. So there are 8 mystic opulences, larger than the largest, smaller than the smallest, and all those kinds of things are mystic opulences. But Prabhupada says that don't stop. Don't get fascinated by this. And when am I going to get it? Don't even desire those mystic opulences, because they can get to the head. For example, in the Bhagavatam, we see about the story of Karda Muni. And Karda Muni is married to Devahuti, who is Manu's daughter. This Manu that we talked about. So she's the Manus that we were talking about. So she's Manu's daughter, Swambhuva Manu, right? Here we're talking about different one. So she's the daughter of Swambhuva Manu. In Brahma's day, 14 Manus take birth. So there are different names, and it's a role. So different Jivatmas will be elevated to that role. And then so she's married to him, and she serves him very. She's a king. She's the daughter of King Manu, right? But she's married to Karda Muni, who's living in the forest. And she serves him very dutifully. She's a princess, but living in the forest, no maid servants, no nothing. She takes a shower quickly in the river, comes and serves her husband. So doesn't even have time to comb her hair. So hair becomes all matted. She spends her time serving her husband, doesn't have time to eat also. So she becomes very frail and all that. And then after serving her husband for quite some time, she says to her husband that, I've served you so much and you are my husband and it's your duty to give me a child, right? So at that time, through mystic powers, Karda Muni transforms her. First he produces like 1,000 servant maids out of air. And then they all come and, take care of him. They take her into a water sarovar to give her bath. And as soon as she comes out of the sarovar, she's back to her beautiful self again. Then he creates a planet, a flying house, house planet for them. They go there and live there. And it's a beautiful, Bhagavatam describes it, how beautiful their bedroom was, how beautiful their bed was. It was decorated with pearls and ivory and things like that. And he was able to create all that. And they both lived there for 100 years together. And they don't even know 100 years are gone. And she has 9 daughters at the end of it. And then one of the things that Karda Muni had said was that, after I have a son, I will leave and go back to doing my duties of a human being. And so towards the end of that, Devahuti says that I was cheated by material energy. I was cheated. And so this is what material energy does to you. And we might just look and like, oh, wow, a bedroom, a bed with ivory and pearls. Oh, how luxurious is that? And 1,000 servant maids and, the ability to become young immediately. She says it's cheating. She felt cheated. Why? Because all that deviated her from asking this question about, who am I? What is Lord? What is my relationship with the Lord? So, so I was talking about the senses, and so the senses will, they have got these defects, and that's why we are saying that Sri Bhagavan Uvacha is a very important thing to think about in this particular chapter, because Sri Bhagavan is saying, Sri Bhagavan is not under the modes of material nature, so whatever is coming from Sri Bhagavan has to be accepted. So here we see that Krishna he told in the previous chapter that you have to get transcendental knowledge, right? So he could have started that with saying, okay, so I'm going to tell you now what is transcendental knowledge. There's Jiva, there's this, there's, Abhideh, there's Prayojan, or he could have started like that. No, he's starting with that I told this to the sun god Vivashwan. Many, many years ago, he told that science of Bhagavad-gita, he imparted it to him, right? The sun god is a Devta. And I was saying that people, like science says that you can't live in the sun. Of course, you can't live in the sun with this body, right? Every planet has got certain requirements of the bodily conditions and certain consciousness of the soul to be able to enter into that planet. And if you try to mess around with it, it's not a good idea, right? For example, we hear the story of Vishwamitra, who tried to push Trishankhu to the heavenly planets without any qualifications on part of Trishankhu, right? So Vishwamitra, through his mystic powers, Varshana Mataji pushed him up to go to those heavenly planets. And then Indra from there said, no, you cannot come into the heavenly planets. You don't have qualifications. So he pushed him down, right? So that's why we see him in the middle hanging like that. Right, so we don't mess with that. If we have to go to higher planets, we will go through our qualifications. And so in the sun planet, people have got more fire in their bodies, and that's why they won't burn there. Right, so there are things that don't burn into fire, right? What do the fire brigade people wear?
They're fireproof vests.
They are fireproof things, right? So they are things that don't burn into fire. So we have seen evidence of that here also. So when we see there are things which are fireproof, why do we even argue and say that people cannot live on the sun planet? After we are seeing this over here, it's because our minds are so rotten that we don't want to accept anything that is given by the Shastras. We have got envy of Krishna, and whatever he says, we have to defy that, right? But it is there, right? And we see it in our lives. It's just for us to accept it, right? So yeah, so these are gods. So he's first told his sun god Vivashman, and Vivashman is a sun god. So Surya Devta is there, and here Prabhupada also quotes a verse from Bhagavatam, right? He says that he goes around, right? So the sun god sits in a very beautiful chariot. And there are some horses that are drawing the chariot, and he goes at a very, there's 7 horses, and it's a very, very fast pace, like, millions of kilometers per second. It's kind of a mind-boggling speed by which the sun moves on his chariot, and his chariot has got only one wheel on it. So he does that. And so sun god, or Surya Devta, right? Surya Devta as he's called. So he's sitting on his chariot. So there's a chariot. So obviously you need a chariot driver, right? So somebody should be driving his chariot, right? So who is the chariot driver for him? The chariot driver for Surya Devta is Arun. So you also hear the word Arun Devta. And sometimes we confuse between Arun and Surya to be the same, but they're not the same. They're different. So Arun Devta is there. And it's so interesting that, obviously among the demigods also, there are layers of, higher and lower like that. And so Arun is at a lower level than Surya. And so when he's driving the chariot, Surya is sitting on his back, on the back, and he's driving the chariot in the front. But how he drives the chariot, he keeps on looking at him like that. And maybe they're talking or whatever they're doing over there. So the Surya Devta, he's a Surya, he's a demigod, right? Now, who's the mother of demigods? We did that a few weeks ago. Anybody remember?
Devahuti.
There were 2. One is the mother of demons, and one is the mother of demigods.
Mataji,
yes?
Atri.
Aditi and Diti.
Aditi and Diti.
Yeah. Both are wives of Kashyap Muni. Kashyap Muni has other wives also.
Yes.
So Diti and Aditi are wives of Kashyap Muni. And so he is, Surya is the son of Kashyap Muni and Aditi. Right? Aditi gives birth to demigods. Right? So Surya Devta is that. Okay. Now, so Krishna starts with saying that I have imparted the science of Bhagavad-gita to the sun god Vivashman. And so a couple of things to keep in mind here, and the connection with Mahabharata, where all this is happening, right? Krishna is telling all this thing there. So one is that Arjuna was seeing something different in the night. And as soon as Surya Devta came up, right, he saw light. And he saw that my relatives are standing there, right? So Surya Devta also stands for light. So he's telling that, number one. And then second is that in the Mahabharata, there is Karna, right? Karna is the son of Surya Devta.
Oh.
Right? Kunti and Surya Devta.
Kunti,
right?
yeah.
Right? So Surya Devta is there, he's riding in a chariot, and it goes around the planetary system, and then it gives lights to all the planets. So according to us, according to the Shastra, there's only one sun in the entire universe, in the entire galaxy, in the entire Milky Way. There is only one sun. Whereas in geography, you hear about solar systems, and there is a sun, and there are 8 planets around it. There's another sun, the X number of planets around it. No, so Shastras are very different about the sun. There's only one sun, and it gives light to all the planets. Interesting thing that the lower planetary systems, right, of the 3 planetary systems we talked about, the lower planetary systems do not get the sun. Sun rays do not reach them. So how do they get the light? They have money. And from the money, the light comes. And so that is like the Las Vegas, right? In Vegas also, you don't have light, right? When you enter inside a casino, that's it. There are no windows, no nothing. But there's a lot of light inside, right? The casino. It's kind of
And
like that.
Mataji, I was just remembering, when they go to the mines, they wear
Yes.
and they have a light on their
On the
head to
Yes,
see.
it's
So
like that.
probably they picked it up from the Shastras.
The Shastra, yeah, everything comes from the Shastras, actually. Yeah, so that is there.
Mataji, if they have the light from their forehead, doesn't that actually seem sort of advanced, really? Because they have
so
the light
Las Vegas,
coming from
it
within.
is. It is. So do not think that Patal Lok is a place where there is poverty. Patal Lok is much advanced in opulence than even the heavenly planets above, in material opulence. Like Las Vegas is better than Disneyland, right?
No, so is that light coming from within them, or is it fixed there, or what?
That I don't know. The mechanism of how the light comes from there, but I know there's money there. They have monies on their forehead, and that's from where the light comes. But yeah, and as science would say that, science explains to us, right, that why do diamonds sparkle? Because the light is coming, they're reflecting the light of the sun, like that, right? But there's no sun. So those concepts are very different from what we learn in science, like that. Yeah, so where does the light come from then? Yeah, maybe it comes from the fire within, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. So it's coming from that fire piece, heat and light. So I don't know. But they're more opulent, they are more heavy, they are more rich, they enjoy life more, but there is no concept of God there. Varshana Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, you just mentioned about Karan, that he was a son of Kunti and Suryadev. Mataji, one incident took place in Karan's life when his blood was oozing from his body, and some Muni told him, "You are a Kshatriya." Who said, and what was the incident, Mataji?
The instant for that was it was with Parashuram. And we know that Parashuram was unhappy with the Kshatriyas. So Parashuram knew military secrets, military art, right? So Karna wanted to learn that, but he just told him that I'm not a Kshatriya. And so he gave him the secrets, the art. He taught him all that. And then one day his spiritual master wanted to go to sleep, rest something underneath a tree. So then Karna said, okay, put your head on my lap and you can sleep. So he put his head on the lap of his student and he went to sleep. And while he was sleeping, then a scorpion came and bit on the thigh of Karna. So obviously, when a scorpion bites you, you will jump, right? But the Karna did not jump because he knew that if I jump, my spiritual master's sleep will be disturbed. So he just tolerated that. And Kshatriyas can do that. They can tolerate pain. That's why they were so excited about this Mahabharat war going on, right? Anybody like us will be just chickened out, like, oh, tomorrow they could be cut here. Like tomorrow is an operation, small tooth extraction or visit to a dentist, and we're like, oh. Right? Kshatriyas are not like that. They like that as a sport. So then when the spiritual master wakes up and he sees that, there was a bite, and then he asks that, what is this going on? So then he understands that Karna had lied to him, that he's indeed a Kshatriya. So he gets very angry. And he said that you took all this knowledge from me on the sly. And so when you really need this knowledge, it's going to disappear. And that's what happens when Karna's chariot is broken and he tries to evoke the weapon to kill Arjuna, that he's not able to do that. Because in those days, weapons were evoked by mantras, right? So he's not able to remember that mantra at that time because of the curse of the spiritual master, because of lying to the spiritual master. So we have to understand what it means to lie to the spiritual master. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Meera Mataji, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I'm going back to what you said. You said about the lower planets. There is more opulent, more light. They enjoy life more, but they don't believe in God. So would they be suffering like we suffer here? Would it be more intense suffering there?
Actually, no. Actually, no. They enjoy. And why are they enjoying like that? The suffering is most in the middle planetary system. And the reason for that is that it's only because of suffering that you will remember Krishna. So that's why living in a middle planet system is much better. In the lower planet system, they have no problems, but then they have other problems. They have, when the death comes, they are scared. like that, right? And then, the good souls do go there to do some prayers for them to improve the atmosphere, like that. Otherwise, down below, it's very bad.
So they don't have any intention to.
Yeah, they don't have any intention for. Yeah, but they did good things, right? They did good job. They did charity, a lot of charity. Then that's why it says in the Bhagavatam that when you're giving charity, you have to understand and do the right type of charity, give the right type of charity, right? So they will do a lot of charitable acts, which all adds up, right? And they get credit. So you got a lot of credits, but you're not thinking of God. So you will still get the results of your credit, enjoyment, but there won't be any God there. So it's only when they come across some great soul like Prabhupada or, somehow or the other, the book reaches there, then they will reach. Otherwise, the credit will expire sooner or later, and then they come again into that cycle. It's a cycle of going up and down, up and down, up and down. Upariyada. Like that.
Okay, thanks.
So that's why, so he said that in a verse over here, it says that he first imparted that knowledge to the sun god Vivashwan, and Vivashwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, right? And then mankind instructed it, Vivashwan, and he instructed that to Ishkavaku. So Ishkavaku is the king of this planet. And the very interesting thing is that this Manu is a position, like I said, right? The Manu is a position, and then the Manu that we are talking about is the Vaivashvat Manu. So Vaivashvat Manu actually was, for those of you who have, let me read a little passage from Bhagavatam. If I have that handy here. Oh, yeah. Let me share my screen. So this is about, Keshavadhritta Meena Sharira, right? So these are incarnations of the Lord, and he takes a Meena Sharira. What does it mean? Keshavadhritta Meena Sharira.
Fish.
So what is that avatar called?
Matsya avatar.
Matsya avatar. Exactly. Right? Yeah. So here, Matsya, the Lord's fish incarnation, and just read a few paragraphs from here. So this chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself by Swamsha, that is his personal expansions, and Vibhinanshas, his expansions as the living entity. So who are we? Are we Swamshas or are we Vibhinansa?
Parts and parcels of Supreme Personality.
We are what? We are Swamsha or we are Vibhinanshas?
Vibhinanshas.
Vibhinanshas.
Vibhinanshas, right? Vibhin means different, right? So we are different from the Lord in the sense that we are individual souls, right? And Bhagavad-gita also, it says, Mame Vamsho Jiva Loke. So Amsho word also comes there. Mam Eva Amsho. So Mame Vamsho. So it comes from Amsha, which means a part. As stated in Bhagavad-gita 4.8, Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chaduskritam, and we will see that over the next few months. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appears on this planet for the protection of the sadhus or devotees and for the destruction of the miscreants or non-devotees. He especially descends to give protection to the cows, the brahmanas, the demigods, the devotees, and the Vedic system of religion. Thus he appears in various forms, sometimes as a fish, sometimes a boar, sometimes Nrsimhadev, sometimes Vamandev, and so on. But in any form of incarnation, although he comes within the atmosphere of the material modes of nature, he is unaffected. This is the signs of supreme controlling power. Although he comes within the material atmosphere, Maya cannot touch him. Therefore, no material qualities can be attributed to him in any degree. Once at the end of the previous kalpa, now kalpa is a day of the Brahma. So once at the end of the previous kalpa, a demon named Hayagriva wanted to take the Vedic knowledge away from Lord Brahma at the time of annihilation. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took the incarnation of a fish at the beginning of the period of Swambhuva Manu and saved the Vedas. During the reign of Chakshusha Manu, there was a king named Satyavrata, who was a great pious ruler. To save him, the Lord appeared as a fish incarnation for a second time. King Satyavrata later became the son of the sun god known as Shraddha-devi. So here I just wanted to let you know that there's this King Satyavrata. He later on becomes the son of the sun god named as Shraddha-deva. He is the same as the king that we are talking about here, right? So here Vivashwan Manavepraha. So this Manu that we are talking about, right? And this name of the Manu is Vivashvan. Vivashvan is the son, and to Manu, whose name is Vaivasvat, right? So Manu, remember, is a post. And on that post, there is this Manu known as Vaivasvat. And this Manu that we are talking about in his previous birth was Satyavrata. So he's saying King Satyavrata later became the son of the sun god known as Shraddha-devi. And Shraddha-devi is nothing but the one that we are talking about, which is Vivashvan, right? So Vivashvan and Shraddha-devi are the same because Vivashvan's wife's name was Shraddha. So he's the Dev, husband is the Dev, like that. So Shraddha-devi. He was established as Manu by the personality of Godhead. So this King Satyavrata is where, where this pastime of Krishna is there. So to receive the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, King Satyavrata engaged in the austerity of subsisting only by drinking water. Once while performing this austerity on the bank of the Kritmala river and offering oblations of water with the palm of his hand, he found a small fish. The fish appealed to the king for protection, asking the king to keep him in a safe place. Although the king did not know that the small fish was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, as a king, he gave shelter to the fish and kept him in a water jug. The fish, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, wanted to show his potency to King Satyavrata, and thus he immediately expanded his body in such a way that he could no longer be kept in the jug of water. The king then put the big fish in a big well, but the well was also too small. Then the king put the fish in a lake, but the lake was also unsuitable. Finally, the king put the fish in the sea, but even the sea could not accommodate him. Thus the king understood that the fish was no one else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he requested the Lord to describe his incarnation as a fish. The Personality of Godhead, being pleased with the king, informed him that within a week there would be an inundation, floods throughout the universe, and that the fish incarnation would protect the king, along with the rishis, herbs, seed, and other living entities in a boat which could be attached to the fish's horn. After saying this, the Lord disappeared. King Satyavrata offered respective obeisances to the Supreme Lord and continued to meditate upon him. In due course of time, inhalation took place, and the king saw a boat coming near. After getting aboard with the learned Brahmanas and saintly persons, he offered the prayers to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and thus he taught Maharaj Satyavrata and the saintly persons about Vedic knowledge from the core of the heart. King Satyavrata took his next birth as Vaivasva Manu, who is mentioned in the Bhagavad-gita, Vishwasan Manave Praha. The sun god spoke the science of Bhagavad-gita to his son Manu. Because of being the son of Vivashvan, this Manu is known as Vaivasvat Manu. So I just wanted to stop over here and bring this interesting thing that we are talking about water, we are talking about a boat, and we are talking about some people being protected, some animals, some herb, and some human beings. And this is so much common or similar to what the Christians talk about, the Noah's Ark. And I know if Namazia Mataji knows about that background, about that, right? So Noah's Ark is also a boat, and there is water, and the Lord comes to protect all these people, to take them back to heaven or something like that, right? So you can see that the original is Bhagavatam, and from there, the modifications of things come, and the stories get modified, and they get twisted. And we will see in the next verse next week, that Krishna willing, that how even the Bhagavad-gita which is spoken gets twisted and presented in different manners and things like that. But what we have to remember over here is that Krishna is telling Arjuna that look at all these kings of different stature. Sun god, king of an amazing planet, sun. The sun is the king of all the planets. Forget about Earth planet. He's the king of all the planets. And then the king of that planet is the sun god. So look at what kind of a caliber of a king he is, sun god. What does sun god do? He listens to Bhagavad-gita from Krishna. And then what does he do? He tells it to his son, to Manu, right? And then Manu tells it to his son, Ishkabaku, like that, right? And who are these exalted people? Who is this Manu that we are talking about, Vivashwan, who's born to, in the Manu family? And so he is nothing but Satyavrata in his previous birth. And Satyavrata, the king, the Lord, took incarnation of a fish just because one devotee was praying. Satyavrata was praying, and just for one devotee, he took this incarnation as a king, as a fish, right? So exalted devotees are reading and learning from Bhagavad Gita. And the reason why Prabhupada explains that you have to, if you are a king, you have to be Raj Rishi, Raja plus Rishi. Just Raja is not enough. You have to be Rishi. You have to have some spiritual knowledge also to be able to guide the citizens that you are ruling and administrating. Now, if you have to go and look at the kings of today, which is the presidents and the prime ministers of the various countries, let us see how many of them are propagating Krishna consciousness, or how many organizations are saying that before the people start working in the morning, we should sit down and read a verse from Bhagavad Gita or a chapter from Bhagavad Gita. How many are saying? None. So the Raj and Rishi are divorced. They are no longer together. They stay separately. But here so Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna that, Arjuna, these great people before you have done this. These great people before, I have instructed this science to all of these people, and now I'm instructing this to you. Right? So that Arjuna will understand. It will be like, oh, it's not just that my friend who I just took over as my spiritual master, that he's just telling it for me. Right? For my sake, my friend is explaining it to me. No, he has been doing it for such great personalities, and when such great personalities do, and that is why whenever you want to propagate something, important, you try to bring in the celebrities, right? For example, if you want to bring up cancer awareness, right? So if you want to bring up cancer awareness, you might try to bring up somebody from Hollywood or Bollywood who survived cancer. And we said, oh, yeah, I love this actor. Oh, he's my favorite actor. He's my favorite actress, like that. And then, oh, they did it. Oh, so they drink 16 glasses of water every day. Oh, I'll also drink it. Because whatever great people do, common men follow. So that is why in this particular verse, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that, Arjuna, I have told this to so many other people. Now I'm telling it to you so that you should also learn it. But one of the things to remember is that he says this is avyayam. This jnanam is avyayam, which means it does not change. Which means that you should not change it. You should not do any mundane wrangling, as Srila Prabhupada says. Do not try to bring in your own interpretation. Own interpretation. And people can try to bring out things from the Bhagavad Gita according to their own whims, passions, whatever they like. And there was such a nice joke, and I'll just try to bring up the words here from the Bhagavad Gita and take it in the light spirit. It's meant to be a joke, so don't take it very seriously. So what are the 4 regulative principles?
No meat eating,
no
illicit
gambling,
sex,
No gambling,
no
no illicit sex, no illicit sex.
Okay, and what is, so no illicit sex, no meat eating, no gambling,
gambling.
and no? What is the 4th one?
No intoxication.
No intoxication. Okay, so what is intoxication?
Drinking.
Drinking what?
Drinking alcohol, which
alcohol.
gives you see.
Okay, and what else?
Drugs.
Drugs,
Drugs. Okay, what else?
Marijuana.
Is that all? What else? What is this intoxication actually is tries to be emphasized here?
addiction.
Addiction, exactly. Addiction. So what else can we be addicted to?
Tea and coffee.
Tea and coffee, right? So it is tea and coffee that is, they had said you should not do that. And then one person comes and says that, we were talking to one of the speakers that we have at ISKCON, and he said, no, all that is fine, but why are you asking me not to drink tea? I said, no, 4 regulative principles. Prabhupada has told us not to do that. He said, no, but the Bhagavad Gita says that you should drink tea. So where does it say in Bhagavad Gita you should drink tea? So he points out to the most important chapter, chapter 12, which is devotional service. And he points to this word and it says chapi. Chapi.
Oh my.
So this is what people can do, that you can drag the information, whatever you like from it, and suit your own purposes. That's very, very important thing. Number 1, if you attend the morning classes, Sunday morning classes, it is not chapi. it is chapya.
Chapya.
So that itself,
But
it is
also
wrong.
chapi is in Hindi. It's not in Sanskrit.
Yes, it is
So-
not.
That's why the
Even
Chai
Hindi, it is
name
chapya.
came. That's why the
Chapi.
Chai name
Right,
came.
right. And then it is like, I like Bhagavad-gita. This one happened with Srila Prabhupada, actually. So this guy goes to Srila Prabhupada and he says that Srila Prabhupada, Bhagavad-gita is the best of the scriptures. I tell you, I really adore the scriptures. Amazing book. And so, Prabhupada and people at his caliber, they will figure it out. The person who's talking, they're genuine or they're just talking loose, a pokey, language, as he say in Hindi. So he knew it. He immediately said, so he said, okay, why do you say that Bhagavad-gita is such a wonderful scripture? He says, wow, this is one scripture that says that, we can do whatever we like. He says, where is it saying Bhagavad-gita that you can do whatever you like? Oh, after speaking on 18th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, after speaking to Arjuna for so long, then Krishna tells to Arjuna, now you do whatever you want to do. So, it is content and context, as Vaisheshika Prabhu was saying in the morning to, Para Gorangi's comment. He was saying that content has always got to be, understood in the context, right? For example, when you say the word good, right? If I say, Varshana Mataji answered something and I said good. So there is a context. She answered something and I said good, right? And if I say, Varshana, goodbye, then the good is no longer good, right there, right? And sometimes, a son comes to his father and he says, yeah, father says, where is the result? Where is the report card? And he says, Dad, I'll give you the report card, but you have to maintain social distance. Stay 6 feet away from me. I'll show you the report card, right? And of course, when the father looks at the report card, son has failed in every subject. And what does he say? Good, very good. Right? The same word good means so many things in different contexts. Like that, right? So we should not be picking things out of context, not use our mundane wrangling to pick out words from the Bhagavad Gita like that. We have to learn it from the disciplic succession. And Krishna is emphasizing that, as you see that, Sun God spoke it to Manu, Vivashwan, and then Vivashwan spoke it to Ishkwaku, who was the king of this planet Earth. And actually, why is he saying planet Earth? And why is he bringing out Ishkwaku? Why is he talking about that disciplic succession? And the reason for that is that Lord Ramchandra is born in that dynasty.
Yeah.
And
Ikshwaku.
Treta Yuga. Yeah.
Right. So he's talking about all that. So we learn more about that. But the key thing to notice, and that's why in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita itself, Prabhupada is demarcating the lineage there to read, right? So I'll stop my thing here, and I didn't notice Anuni Mataji's hand. So let's go, Mataji.
Yeah, Mataji, I just have a question about the lower planets again. It was relation to what Meera Mataji also asked. So when we talk about the asuras, are those the beings of the lower planets?
Yes.
So those are the demons.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, and it's just to describe a little bit of that. I mean, people have heavy bodies. They drink their alcohol of different kinds. Women are very loose. There are different kinds of women. They are described in the Bhagavatam, Pamchali, the 3 characters, Kaminis. If you read the Bhagavatam, 5th canto, where these are described, you will never name your daughter as Kamini.
But there are people who have names Kamini.
There are. That's what I'm saying, because we don't know. We don't think before we name, right? If you read the scriptures over there.
What is the exact meaning of Kamini, Mataji?
So these are varieties of women who are very good at enticing men.
Oh.
Yeah.
What chapter, Mataji?
I want to go read
Canto.
it. 5th canto.
But do you know what is the literal meaning of Kamini?
Calm, desire.
Oh,
Lust. Yeah. Yeah.
But
on a superficial sense. Yeah.
Does this Kamini comes in any other Devi's names? No.
No, the names of the Devi, I know only one name, Krishna and Radha. Better to stay safe than going to all the demigods. Yeah. Yeah. So lower planetary system, stay here where you are. We are very lucky to be born here. Actually, the demigods in the heavenly planets want to come to the middle planetary system.
Is it also not true that when the asuras, when they perform good acts like charity or whatever, and they accumulate the credit, as you put it, they also ascend to places like Earth? So with that credit to their account, don't they also ascend?
They will not ascend to Earth because of the charities that they are doing. Doing charities without any godly things will just lead you to more enjoyment, right? Simple. If you don't connect it with Krishna, it's only when that everything gets exhausted and then you are at a zero, then you will come here, because you can't live there. You can't stay in the Hyatt Regency if you don't have money on your credit card. Then you come here, right? And then you could be born as whatever, a dog, a cat, anything.
Wait. So when all their credit is exhausted, then they come to Earth?
Yes, it's a middle ground, right? The zero.
So why did they go there in the first place?
Because they did not read the scriptures. They were doing things. They were doing things, but with the sense of enjoyment, right? I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy this. Let me do this. But I will throw in and build some hospitals here and there. But no Krishna in the line. No Krishna in the thought. That's a godless society there.
But you have people like that on Earth.
Yes. There are gradations of that, right? There are gradations of non-godliness. There are gradations of opulences also, right? I mean, those who had a person in a poor country might have a very different understanding of what opulence is till he moves to a richer country, right? So we have no idea. We have no idea of the lifestyles. For example, if we start describing some of the planets here in this planetary system, the middle, but slightly higher than us, and they talk about rivers of mango juice, and somebody might say it's a fairy tale. Rivers of mango juice, how can they appear? Yeah, because you don't see them here, so you will say that, right? So we can't even think about that. We can't even comprehend what kind of opulence we are talking about, right? Even the types of wines that are available. I mean, somebody who likes to drink wine over here might get elevated and go up to a higher planetary system. And like Gandharvas are there. Of course, higher planetary system, there's a concept of God also. So they are good singers, they sing.
But
in the middle planetary system, there's just Earth, right?
It's a set of planetary systems.
Oh, so how many planets are there in the middle planetary?
They're uncountable. Uncountable. Thousands and millions of them.
In the middle planetary system.
Mm-hmm. And equally so on the top, equally so on the bottom.
And in the other middle planetary system, there are other humans like us, or other higher beings?
Others, yeah. Read fifth canto. There are other beings also, other types of, there are 8,400,000 species. Out of that, 400,000 are the Homo sapiens like us, 400,000, right? So there are Kim Purishas like Hanuman. Where will you put Hanuman, right? Hanuman lives in one of the planetary systems on our Bhumandala. Yeah.
Really? I thought Hanuman was like a demigod.
Hanuman is like a demigod, but we call him as a demigod. There are varieties of demigods. He's a devotee of the Lord. He comes in the qualifications of Kim Purusha. Kim Purusha is that, they look like human beings, but you're asking like, where is the man? Because he's half man, half monkey, right? Similarly, mermaids, right? That we used to read about, mermaids, half fish and half human beings, they exist.
And so they're in planets higher than us?
No, not necessarily. They can be in our planet itself. There's nothing high in getting a...
But a lot of people, they say we came from Hanuman, like monkey family, humans.
Science says that, yeah, but we don't say that. According to the Shastras, there is an evolution, and we talk about evolution. But Darwin talked about evolution, but he kind of just twisted it. So what Darwin was saying was that, there are monkeys and a monkey body through giving birth to subsequent monkeys. And then one fine day over a long period of time, they evolve and they become human beings like that, right? So he's talking about the evolution of the gross body, right? But our Shastras don't talk about that. In our Shastras, everything is created at the same time. So the Bhagavatam talks about Atta Sarga Visargascha. So there is creation and Sarga, and there is Visarga, subsequent creation, secondary creation. So in our creation, first these elements will be created, earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? And then the secondary sub-creation, everything is created. So like serpents are created by Kajru, right? And it's something which is very difficult for us to understand, that how is a human being giving birth to, like somebody in the form of a human being, giving birth to serpents. And we asked this question of Hanubat Peshak Swami Maharaj, like, it's difficult for us to comprehend with the intellect that we have. And then he said that, sometimes women have erotic dreams. And so in the dream, a woman can have a relationship with a snake, right? A conjugal relationship with a snake. So he said, these are not just imaginary things that happen. What you have in dream is also a world of its own, has its realities. And that's why sometimes, you suffer bad dreams, so that you had some bad karma, and that bad karma gets dissolved just through the dream rather than suffering it in this body like that. So it's difficult to understand. So what happens here in our Shastras, we talk about evolution, but basically we are talking about evolution of the consciousness of the soul. The soul is evolving and moving through the various subtle bodies, right? Which are more and more and more evolved in their consciousness. So you could be in an animal consciousness, and then that too, are you a rat or a cat or a cow or a lion? Because they say if a person is a lion's body, then after he dies, he will get a body of a Kshatriya. If it's a cow, after it dies, it will get a body of a Brahmana, right? So the soul is consciously evolving and, going into from the conscious. So the evolution is really of the consciousness, and it's the soul that is transmigrating through these different bodies, which are, of different categories and gradations. And it's not that a monkey will first will later on become a
I just wanted to say also, they've disproved Darwin's theory. They don't believe in that anymore anyway.
Right,
that they're all separate lines of evolution.
And it is such an important thing. And this is Vaisheshika who brings this very nicely. But before that, there's a very funny thing that somebody said. That, he said, and it was a poetry, it was written, I don't know where it is. Maybe, I don't know, Varshana shared it with me, who shared it, I don't know, Mataji who said. But anyway, it said that, so you believe in everything that Darwin says, although he came from a monkey. And this ties very you believe in what monkeys say, and it so strictly ties to what our Bhagavad Gita today is saying. It's saying Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Don't go to monkeys to get the value and the knowledge. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, go to something which is aprameh, apurushe, go there to listen to it. You are listening to Darwin, because Darwin has got 4 defects. Right. And the second thing was that Vaisheshika Prabhu says that, so how did you come to know about Darwin's theory of evolution? Did you see a monkey evolve into a human being? Did you? Any one of you? Did you see a monkey in your backyard? Right? Did you? No. You read it in a book and you believed it. You believe it. So that's what he's saying. That, there are people who are stupid, but stupider are those who believe in that stupidity. Right? So it is so important for us to distribute books. And we are in Kali Yuga. It's a different society. It's a different place. It's all messed up.
But Shraddha Mataji, it's just kind of unfortunate though, because like in this education system, like our kids, they're forced to learn these things, and then they have to take exams on it, and it's just becomes almost like ingrained, like you're just forced to accept whatever is taught. So we don't really necessarily have a way out.
Exactly. And then
so how to combat that then? Let's say, I guess it could somehow, it's also related to one's karma, because I just feel like they're just learning these things, they're not learning anything devotional, then they're forced to accept those concepts.
Yeah, to a certain extent it depends on the karma. And depending on the karma, I was talking to somebody the other day. By the way, who is on Pixel 4 today? Is it one of the known people? on Pixel 4?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. This
Oh, you're on
chapter.
Pixel 4. Oh, okay. Hare Krishna, welcome.
Yeah.
So, so I was saying, so I was talking to somebody, a devotee in whose family, the rest of the family is eating meat, the one of the parents encourages meat eating to the kids, and the other parent was worried that, what do I do now? My kids are eating meat, and they don't listen to me, they listen to the other parent and all that kind of stuff. And I just said that, there's a limit to what you can do. There is also, remember that your kids are souls who had that desire to eat meat. And that is why they are born in a family like that. All that you can do is pray. So yes, to a certain extent, to answer your question, it is the karma, and Sumi Mataji, that they are born in a family where they are reading this and they're relishing this. And then also we have to say that the parents, and there's a very nice verse from which Rishabh-dev teaches to his children in 5th canto again of the Bhagavad-gita, of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he says that, if you do not have, he lists a set of people like father, mother, king, teacher, and so on and so forth, that you do not have the right to be any one of these, including mother and father, if you are not able to deliver your kids from this cycle of birth and death, which means that if you're not able to impart spiritual knowledge to your kids, do not have kids. Simple. The only purpose that you should have kids is to bring the soul up in Krishna consciousness. So, even if they are born, and that is why, again, we try to go and preach things to people. That is why Prabhupada translated books into Bhagavatam. We spend so much of time, effort, and energy and Lakshmi in distributing books so that people will get a chance, and by chance they will hear, right? And even if they get association, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koy, lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi koy. Like even if you get associated for a fraction of a second with a devotee, then it'll have an effect on you. And like they say that, you are switching the channels, and then what is that channel in India, Rachana Mataji, some channel that you have on religious things?
Mataji, I don't even know how to turn on the TV.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So any of the channels that are there, and you, while flipping the channels, you one channel was there, and then your remote gets stuck, and you're not able to move the remote. So for a few seconds, you hear something about God. So credits to the guy.
Astha channel where you hear about the Lord.
There you go. Yeah. So Astha channels. If you go to Astha channel, like that. So that is why we do it. Yeah. It's a complicated thing. This is a complicated mess that we all are in. Nobody exempt. But then when you have the spiritual background, then it's a totally different thing. The way you approach everything is very, very different. Even death, including death. Which is the worst thing in this material world. Okay, so we went way over our time today. But good to see you all here. And are we going to have the standard darshan that we have in the end of the lecture?
Hare Krishna.
It's a bad time for her right now.
Okay, bad time. Okay, we don't show bad time on Facebook. Okay, take care.
I try to just show the
Oh, very good, very good.
She's laughing.
Yeah, bad time kids love the bad time, right?
Yes. Say Radhe Radhe. It's like
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, right now I can't show her like her hands. She does Radhe Radhe now.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just that's it. Yeah, give them her hand only. Yeah.